due to the All-Star break, and due to the fact that about half the teams didn't play last week, there's no point in having a power rankings. Now, next Saturday I can, because I can combine the results of those teams the week before, teams from this coming week. Friday and Saturday, we're going to have a lot of teams playing, and that's when the fun starts. And then I can do a power rankings next Saturday where we can all argue over everything. Now, this week I wanted to do something fun. So I want to do goaltender power rankings, and I went by Tandem. And I went by Tandem since they're playing right now, and as my hunch says, they would do in a playoff series. It's tricky. I went over these rankings. I moved them around, changed them around here and there, and I kind of winced at a couple, but we'll see how things turn out. At number 31, Chicago. Now, Chicago's based on the fact that it's Delia and Ward. And while we can argue about whether it's the defense in front of Ward that's caused him to have some issues, his numbers aren't that great. Delia, limited amount of material to go with. And in my eyes, anyways, the Chicago Blackhawks have, well, there's issues there. And that is part of the reason why I don't necessarily see them jumping back into the race. Number 30. I don't have to say they're moving up or moving down either. This is great. I have New Jersey. Now, New Jersey, that's based on Kincaid and Blackwood. Now, if people are going to say, well, you know, some of these guys are in the American League. Right, because of the bye. You want these guys to keep playing, not just go on holidays. So, again, Blackwood, limited amount of action. No way to know how solid he's going to be or not going to be yet. And so, for that reason, I have the New Jersey Devils at 30th. And Kincaid's numbers haven't been great this year either. Number 29, I have St. Louis. So you have Jake Allen, who should be the starter, and yet it feels like Binnington's kind of stealing starts. Because Binnington's record has been excellent. So why wouldn't you start Binnington and let Allen have some rest? And then the question with St. Louis becomes, when they go back to Allen, which undoubtedly they do, where's his confidence level? How well does he play? Does this affect him going forward? Like, there's a lot of questions with Jake Allen I have, and I feel like if not for that contract he has, he probably would have been gone a while ago. But that's just me. Number 28, and I've mentioned goaltending costing these guys games. I have Florida, which is unexpected since it's Luongo and it's Reimer. They're two of the better known names. And yet I have them at 28th because, again, the numbers have been kind of off for both. And it is hard for me to defend them beyond that. It's been a rough year in Florida. And the goaltending's been a central reason why for certain parts of it. All right, number 27. You know, I want to put Philly higher. I want to put Philly higher because of Carter Hart. But at the same time, Carter Hart is 20 years of age. And then the question becomes, so let's say Hart's your guy. Who's the ideal backup in that situation? Probably Elliott. And Elliott hasn't played in a while. So based on the two put together, I can't have Philly higher than 27th. I tried to justify it, and I just couldn't. There just wasn't a way to do it. Number 26, Senators. Anderson's had his challenges this year, but thankfully it looks like with Nelson he'll be able to get less starts after the All-Star break. I admit Ottawa allows a lot of shots. That definitely doesn't help. But at the same time, while Nelson's record has been pretty solid since he went to Ottawa, it is a limited amount of time he's been in Ottawa, and he's had fast starts before. He actually had a fast start this year with Vancouver out of the gate, and then fell back after an injury. So we'll see if they can keep it up. For now, I have them at 26. For now. Like, I'm going to do goaltending power rankings every week or something. That's not going to happen. This is just an all-star thing. Number 25, and even as I'm posting this, I'm still going back and forth on this. Yeah, I'm going to have to go with Arizona at 25. Darcy Kemper's had a solid run. Is Darcy Kemper a starter? No, not really. Aiden Hill ended up getting dropped down after his numbers fell. Calvin Pickard is in there. With Ront out for the year, I can't justify having them any higher than 25th. And I don't know that while the defense, the penalty kill, solid across the board for Arizona, if unspectacular, I can't say that Darcy Kemper's a goaltender I look at and say, that'll get you to the playoffs, even though the West has been kind of a yard sale. Number 24, Carolina. Nedeljkovic wins his debut. But even with McElhinney and Mrazek, even if that was your starting duo, I don't know that I have them higher than 24. It's been that kind of year, and I don't know that I would have them any higher than 24. Carolina, we went into this season saying, can Scott Darling rebound? There were some that said, absolutely. He's been in the gym. He's looking great. And then he didn't, and now you've got McElhinney, Mrazek, and Nedeljkovic could complicate things if he plays really well after the All-Star break, but we'll see. Odds are he just gets sent back down. Number 23, I have Detroit. The Red Wings have an issue, not as their starter, but the backup. Bernier's numbers haven't been great. He's been starting a ton. And, of course, rumors are out there that Jimmy Howard's going to get traded. Until Jimmy Howard gets traded, I'm perfectly comfortable with having them at 23. The goaltending's been good with Howard. It's had its moments with Bernier, and I don't know if the team's playing better in front of Howard than Bernier, but either way, 23 is where I got him. At 22, I can't drag Vancouver higher than 22. And before the season, I think I had their goaltending. I can't remember if I had them at the worst, but I had them near the bottom when it was Nilsson and Markstrom. Markstrom has outperformed where I thought he'd end up being this year. Nilsson, as a Canuck, actually underperformed where I thought he would be. I thought it would be more of a 50-50 split. Demko's up. Demko's had one start so far. It's too early to give them any bonus points for that. But I'm perfectly fine having Vancouver at 22. At 21, this is tough. Henrik Lundqvist, who was at the All-Star game tonight, he ends up being on the winning side, the team that splits the $1 million with the Metro, and there were a lot of breakaways and goals in that. The most entertaining thing was probably Kevin Bieksa. It's just brilliant. Kevin Bieksa's sarcasm is off the charts. Because otherwise a lot of it was kind of unwatchable. And I think it's when I hear things like, I heard a back check, and I went, what back check? Nobody's back checking. He's skating alongside the puck. He's not back checking. So anyways, Lundqvist tonight played relatively well, considering the circumstances of endless breakaways and no defense. But the combination of him and Georgiev has been iffy in New York for parts of this season. Lundqvist was great early. His stats came back to earth over the last month. We may very well see a resurgence from him coming out of the All-Star break. Maybe the All-Star game experience will give him a new energy going into the second half of the year, which I know we're already well past, but some people consider post-All-Star break the second half of the year. We'll see if he gets a bump from that. He very well could. Number 20. Can't put him higher than 20. Talbot and Koskinen. And the fact that Koskinen has only played 28 games so far in the NHL this year, gets the big contract extension. Koskinen isn't costing them games, but I don't know that if the vision here is we're going to make Edmonton a contender if he's the guy. And at the same time, Talbot looks at moments like he's getting his game back, and then it just falls back again. So overall, yeah, I have them at 20th, and I'm okay with that. Number 19. Boy, this team I really debated. I did. I have so many concerns with San Jose's goaltending. And going into this season, I thought it was one of the best goaltending tandems. I think I had them at second or third. But the results and the numbers are bad. Now, the defense in front of Jones and Dell hasn't been great either. But while Jones has had the occasional really solid game, he seems to follow that up with nights where he allows more goals than saves that he makes. So it's been a down year, and it's hard for me to have San Jose any higher than 19th. And when I initially sat down and thought this out, I thought, well, if I go by save percentage, San Jose would be down in and around here if I went just by save percentage. But I thought, no, let's take a step back and look at it from a point of view of it's not just save percentage. It's the idea of which team's goaltending do I have the most faith in, and they're only 19th, which isn't good. Number 18, Buffalo. Carter Hutton. Wobbly. Linus Ullmark had an unbeaten in regulation streak going on there that's been broken recently. And his numbers have started to come back down to earth, which I think we could have expected. Buffalo in general has come back down to earth. I think that the trick is this. If Buffalo misses the playoffs this year, you can't look at it as a wasted year. You can look at it and say, you know what, they did a lot better, and next year will be better than this one. That's kind of how you have to see it if you're a Buffalo fan. And I definitely think they've come back down to earth, and I think the goaltending's been part of it, but it's been a team effort, really. There's been a lot of reasons why there's been more losses than wins on the board for the last 5 or 6 weeks. Number 17. I would love to have Minnesota higher than 17. Dubnyk's numbers, not fantastic. And Stalock straight up scares me at times. And it's interesting because Stalock, of course, was discarded at the NHL level not that long ago, only a couple years ago. And now he's a backup in Minnesota. And I want to have the tandem higher, but I felt like... Because it's two things I'm measuring here. It's the strength of the starter and the strength of the overall tandem. So an excellent starter can drag up the fact that the backup may not be very good. But, if they're an excellent tandem, for me, it kind of bumps them up further. But I couldn't have Minnesota higher than 17th. I wanted to. Number 16, Montreal. And this is based on every game up until now. Because Price... While he's been much better the last couple of weeks, Price had some scary games early on in the year. Didn't look like Carey Price, and so I want to see more from him over the stretch and through the All-Star, past the All-Star break, into the trade deadline. I want to see some more of that top-notch goaltending. We should, right? But we aren't sure yet. The fact that he couldn't play in the All-Star game because of an injury doesn't necessarily surprise us, but the fact that the team's saying there's nagging injuries makes me nervous as somebody watching the league. And Niemi's numbers have been poor. While Niemi's win-loss record is just as good as last year's, his numbers have overall been pretty poor. Number 15, Vegas. Because it's a tandem, it's Vegas. And because Fleury's numbers, while they've been good, and he belonged at the All-Star game, they haven't been great. Absolutely have not been fantastic. And there have been games that he's won, and everybody pats him on the back, and having wanted to watch the game, I go, well, yeah, he's the winning goalie, but he's not the reason they won. And with Carey Price, with Jacob Markstrom, with Koskinen early in the year, and definitely with Ullmark and Hutton at points early on, I would watch games and say they're the reason that the team won. I haven't had that feeling with Vegas very often this year, where Marc-Andre Fleury is the reason. And then you factor in that they didn't have faith in Subban for most of the year. Now Subban's on the shelf. Legace has been serving as a backup that hasn't spent a minute in the net. Makes me a little nervous. But Fleury, veteran goaltender, he's played a ton of games. We'll see if the break and so the bye week, the All-Star game, if that helps him. But he's been playing pretty well lately. Just I can't have them higher than that based on the tandem. Number 14, Colorado. Varlamov had a fantastic start to this year. Varlamov at the start of the year, it looked like he was on his way to a career year, that he might get a raise from the $5.9 million a year he's making right now. That no longer looks like it'll be the case. And yet, while he and Grubauer have put up not so stellar numbers over the last couple of months, in a 7-game series, I wouldn't rule out either of them necessarily putting on a bit of a show and performing quite well. Now, Colorado upset, hard to see. Could I see them winning a game or two and stealing it? Yeah, maybe. But Varlamov, we'll see. We'll see where he ends up. I don't know that his play will necessarily convince Joe Sakic not to look at Bobrovsky. During the offseason, he may very well say, you know what, we're going to go for a home run, try to get Bobrovsky out of Columbus. And if so, then Varlamov's time would be up in Colorado. But then Varlamov becomes a hot commodity on the free agent market one way or the other too. So we'll see. Number 13, Kings. And the Kings get this despite the fact that, yes, Jonathan Quick has been like this, but there's been more of this than that lately. And Campbell's numbers are fantastic. And then, of course, you've got Peterson sitting in the minors saying, I'll wait my time, and then when I'm ready to come up, I'm good. Peterson's numbers were fantastic. I expect Cal Peterson to be their goaltender next year. Whether that's as a backup to Quick or if that's as the starter and Campbell makes his way out of town, I do expect Peterson to be a regular NHL goaltender last year. He showed during that call-up he is ready. He is 100% NHL ready as a goaltender, and it's kind of a shame he got sent back down, but clearly the Kings have a plan here, whether it's to beef up the trade value of Quick or Campbell, whatever they do, and they may do it. They may do it at the trade deadline. We may see Peterson back up with the team after the trade deadline, but it'll be interesting to see what they do. But even without Peterson, they're still 13th for me. Number 12, and this one's tough. That's why I dropped it. Because it's tough. So because it's tough, just talk amongst yourselves while I drop stuff. Is there a drinking game with me dropping stuff? Because if there was, don't, because I get hammered. Number 12. Yeah, it's a tough one. It didn't want to go on the board, and that's the Capitals. Holtby, he had that great run to the Stanley Cup, and we cannot overstate how important it is when a goaltender has a Stanley Cup ring, both in terms of their contract value and their intrinsic value to their team. Copley has had some solid games along the way, but both of them over the last 7 games, during which Washington has lost a lot, their overall numbers haven't been great. But Washington as a team has struggled. I already did a video on that. Don't need to do another one. And so Washington's where they're at. And yeah, so 12th for them. Number 11. Penguins. I would have had the Penguins higher, but Murray has had his, again, much like Quick, he's up, he's down, he's up, and you never know which Murray you're necessarily getting, and then Casey DeSmith's been pretty solid all year. So for me, I have them at 11th. Neither of them get in the All-Star game. Could you have made an argument that a Metro goalie could have been Murray or DeSmith? You could make that argument. Now, whether you'd win that argument might be a completely different matter entirely. But yeah, for me, they're a pretty solid tandem, so I have them at 11. Number 10. The fact that I have Anaheim in the top 10, while Chad Johnson's the backup, says a lot about John Gibson. Gibson's ability in the net is pretty fantastic. It's on display every night because his backup's Chad Johnson. But Johnson played well in the one start he's had recently. When Ryan Miller comes back, this becomes one of the top 5 tandems in the league. But with Johnson, it drops to 10. And it's top 10 because Gibson's pretty damn solid nearly every start. Just a lot of solid starts from him. Number 9. Calgary. Riddick's pretty awesome. Has had some great starts along the way and has stolen the starting job of Mike Smith. Now, because of Smith and how wonky his save percentage and goals against average are, it drags them down as a tandem. Because if something happened to Riddick and you have to go with Smith long term, I don't like Calgary's chances of doing much to get into the playoffs as a top seed or to do anything in the playoffs. So that's why I have Calgary at 9. If not for Riddick, if you had Gillies and Smith as your goalies, odds are they're down in the 19 and 20 region. Maybe lower. Number 8. Jets. Hellebuck's been better lately, but I want to see more of it. And Brossoit's been fantastic. I think Brossoit's deserved more starts than he's had, and that says a lot since last year Brossoit was not fantastic. But yeah, so Winnipeg for me at number 8. I have no problem with their goaltending in general right now. I don't know if Connor Hellebuck's a goaltender this year that has played like last year, and if he looks like a goaltender that wins a goaltending duel over a 6-7 game series. He outdueled Devin Dubnyk last year. I don't know that he will outduel a goaltender this year, and that's what makes me concerned, because Winnipeg was my pick to win the Stanley Cup. So if their goaltending isn't quite up to par, that pick's going to disappear quickly. Number 7, Dallas. And I'm kind of surprised at how high Dallas is, but I can't argue them down any further, because Hudobin's numbers have been solid. Bishop's numbers have been solid. Hudobin playing really well as a backup and playing as much as he has rules out Bishop for the Vezina in my eyes. But Hudobin's been fantastic, and Bishop, while I think between the two, I think Hudobin's been the better goaltender, but you're really splitting hairs at that point. Overall, it's been a really solid tandem. While I can complain about a lot of things with Dallas, I really can't complain about the goaltending. That would be really, really wrong of me to do so. Number 6, Toronto. I think we found out how important and how good Freddie Anderson is while Freddie Anderson was out. When Garrett Sparks got hurt as well, that really compounded it. This is a solid tandem. Sparks is not going to replace Freddie Anderson or push him that hard, but Sparks is a decent enough backup, and Anderson's numbers are pretty solid. And I think the speculation that he could be a Vezina level goaltender, I think that's valid, and I think that very well could be what happens. Number 5. Yeah, I'll go with this one at 5. I've gone back and forth on this. I'm going to put Boston up at 5. Rask has been getting better. Halak's numbers have been coming down. Early in the year, Halak was fantastic. Rask wasn't. This is kind of where things were expected to go as a Boston fan. I saw it remarked today that Boston hasn't been as good as last year. I knew they wouldn't be as good as last year. I predicted them to actually fall to 4th in the division. I didn't predict Montreal would pass them. If I'd predicted Montreal, I'd look like like I knew what I was talking about. I don't, which is good. That's fine. Got to keep me humble. Anyways, all kidding aside, Halak and Rask are a solid tandem, but I think Halak's peaked, and I think Rask, while he's a solid goaltender, I always get nervous about Rask in the playoffs. Always. He definitely makes me nervous. And during the Tampa series last spring, he didn't do a whole lot to dissuade me from being nervous about him as a goaltender in the playoffs. And I don't know if it's the teams get a book on him or that he just gets nervous or what it is, but it's like floodgates open, and it's really, really hard for him to get it back in order. Number 4, and I'm kind of surprised to have these guys at 4, Columbus. And you know what's weird? For me, having Columbus at 4 is for 2 reasons. One, Bobrovsky, though he's had his struggles lately, he is still at times this year looked like a Vezina level goaltender. And Jonas Korpisalo is getting better as the season goes along. Columbus, as fascinating a story as it is, their goaltending has not been a problem for the most part. And again, while Bobrovsky's numbers have been coming down, I don't rule out him getting hot at any point in time. I think the All-Star break could be fantastic for Columbus. I think of all the teams that could benefit from this break, I think Columbus is one of those teams that could really benefit. It gives the coach a chance to depressurize, the players a chance to depressurize, come back after the break, look at the standings and go, hey, all we have to do is play well for the next 30 games, and we're in the playoffs. And if we play really well for the next 30 games, we have home ice in our division. We finish first in the division. Let's do that. Let's stop all the squabbling. Let's stop worrying about contracts. Let's let management deal with that, and we're just going to go out there and play hockey. So I like their chances in that regard. Number 3. Surprises me to have Nashville at 3rd and not 1st. Rene has not been as solid lately. He's another one I'm looking for to get a bump coming out of the All-Star game. Sometimes All-Star weekend gives a guy a bump and they get better. And Rene could very well do that. The rest could help him too. I do think that we're not going to see Rene win the Vezina this year. We're not going to see Nashville win the President's Trophy this year. And those could both be benefits. The fact that Saros is probably going to play more games this year than last year, the fact that they could very well be an underdog entering the playoffs and nobody's taking them very seriously, could harken back to 2 years ago when they ended up going to the Stanley Cup Finals. So they may be a team that performs better when nobody expects anything out of them. Number 2, this is tough. And I'm going to say right now, this is really, really tough because I can argue both of these guys for 1st. And I went back and forth. And here's the problem. So let's just say I put Leonard and Greiss ahead of Vasilevsky and Domingue. I can argue that Domingue and his numbers are below Greiss and Leonard. But would I put Greiss or Leonard as a starting goalie ahead of Vasilevsky? And the answer is no. I really wouldn't. So based on that, if I go by starting goaltender, then that puts Tampa for me at 1st. If I go by the overall tandem strength, I have to put the Islanders at 1st. And that's my conundrum. That's my dilemma. Is that I could end up... And either way, right? Like, are we going by just the starter, or by the tandem? If I'm going by the tandem, I will say this. If Leonard and Vasilevsky are both hurt, and you're starting a series with Greiss at one end of the ring and Domingue at the other, I have more faith in Greiss. For that reason, I have no problem putting the Islanders at first. And that being said, because people missed it last week, people made comments too. They're like, why didn't you change it at the end? Because you gotta change it at the end. Best part is I don't have to worry about putting it back because I don't have these written down anywhere. Oh, there, that goes there. Yeah, that works nicely. And okay, all right. And so I've got Philadelphia at first because Carter Hart has assured me, I contacted him today and he's assured me he will win every game for the rest of the season. They will make the playoffs and he's promised at least 10 shutouts. Florida's at number 2 because Luongo reasons. Number 3 is Chicago because the news that Tony Esposito is coming out of retirement is exciting. The fact that Murray Bannerman's going to be his backup is stunning. Vegas I have at 4th because with Marc-Andre Fleury now backed up by Patrick Roy of all goaltenders, yeah, it was quite an all-star weekend. Roy coming out and they're like, is he going to be a coach? And he's like, I'm going to be a goalie. And then he wins the MVP of the all-star game and, you know, he beat up Gritty. That was a surprise. I didn't expect him to beat up Gritty. I also did not expect Gritty to be the backup goaltender for the Flyers. You guys have been calling that all year. It finally happened. And for the Sharks, Martin Jones's inability to reach 900 in his save percentage, I had a good talk with Martin today, and it's the fact that he is intentionally staying below 900 because he feels that allows him to play possum. Nobody will take him seriously, and then in the playoffs, he's assured me his save percentage will be 950, and he'll score at least a goal per series, so that's exciting. And Ottawa, I have it second for Trojan reasons, and at number 7's Carolina because, that's right, Cam Ward back in Carolina after a surprising trade today, and Artur Serbe coming out of retirement as well. With this youth movement that's going on with the NHL, there's been a movement of veteran players from basically beer leagues saying, hey, it's not just a young players game, we can play this too. And I'm really kind of excited to see what happens. Just like the $12 million extension given to Tanner Glass by the Montreal Canadiens today. Who knew Tanner Glass was even a Montreal Canadian? And now he's going to make $5 million this year, 4 next year, and 3 the year after. I think it's a fantastic investment and a great goal scorer by Montreal. Beautiful, but Montreal stays down here because that's not a goaltender. Buffalo's 31st because Bob Sauvé. New Jersey's at 30th because everybody knows I couldn't stand Marty Brodeur. And then I have Tampa at 28 because the Jerseys guys. Come on. And then the logo. Are you a power company or a hockey team? Get it together. And nobody's afraid of Maple Leafs. And Bunny Larocque coming out. I think Bunny Larocque came out of retirement today because his intention is to get that Vezina trophy after what Montreal did to him in 1981. Like, I need to relive that again. You guys saw that in the history series anyways, right? Exactly. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. And next week, regular power rankings. I'll talk to you again soon.